Hello, what's going on? It's Swimmer. Welcome back. Today we are doing a breakdown of my Value Vintage Nexus Reclamation deck. Now, recently I did go 2-1 in the Value Vintage Cockatrice League with this deck, so I'd say it's pretty good. So I'm going to do a breakdown for you since it's not the most common deck. Alright, so first we're going to look at the creatures and planeswalkers. Right now, we're running 4 copies of Tomio Collector of Tales. Now, Tomio Collector of Tales is one of the most important cards in the deck because it allows us to thin our deck by using its +1 to mill 4 and maybe get a Nexus of Fate or another important card into our hand. And its -3 allows us to recur our win conditions if they get put in the graveyard. Additionally, its ability, the spells and abilities your opponents control, can't cause you to discard cards or sacrifice permanents, is incredibly useful in certain matchups, specifically in matchups against decks like Rack or decks that like Rakdos or Jund that like to use a lot of early game disruption to force people to discard cards, and Loris decks that like to recur creatures that make you sacrifice permanents. So overall, this card is very important to the deck. I recommend if you're building your own Nexus of Fate deck to always run 4 copies of Tamiyo in every deck. All right, next we have our 2 creatures, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. We're running 2 copies of Uro. Uro is a very good creature, especially for this deck, because it helps us with the most important parts of our early game, which is gaining life and putting lands onto the battlefield. While it's the only card in the deck that gains life, keep in the main board, keeping us at a high life total is really important for the deck. And additionally, its escape cost allows you to have a 6/6 body to use in the late game to close out games if your other finishers get disrupted. Overall, very important card. I'd recommend running at least 1 copy. I'm running 2 because I like having that little added consistency of getting it in the early game. And plus, I subbed out Explore, which I was running 2 copies of for this. So it gives me those 2 ramp pieces that I was using Explore for additionally. Next, we have the only sorcery in our deck, which is Treasure Cruise. Just a really solid card that you're going to run in any blue deck that puts a lot of cards in the graveyard like our deck. Next, we have our enchantments, which are just 4 copies of Wilderness Reclamation. Now, this is part of the thing the deck's named after, Nexus Reclamation. It uses Nexus of Fate, which we'll get to when we talk about our sorceries, all 26 of them. And this card, while is of course important for the combo of using the Nexus of Fate, it can also be used for a multitude of other applications too. If you don't have the Nexus of Fate, or if you're in a control matchup, you can use it to hold up mana to counter spells, or you can use it to hold up mana to activate some of our lands, which we will get to when I do the lands section of this. Overall, of course, very important card to the combo and the rest of the deck. Obvious 4 of in the deck. Next, we will go on to the instance. This will be the longest section as it's our most largest card type. I don't know how I'm supposed to say that. So we're going to start with Brain Surge. Brain Surge, really good card. Lets you look at 4 cards. Only gives you 2, but that's fine. Because Brain Surge really gives you that ability to look at more cards, which can be really important to win games in this deck. I'll give you an example. So I'm playing against a Rakdos aggro deck, right? They have me, so next turn, if I let them untap, I die. And I spend my whole turn looking for cards. I have a Brain Surge in hand, and I need to get a Nexus of Fate. I don't have Nexus of Fate. I go to my untap with the aforementioned Wilderness Reclamation, and I go to untap. I cast the Brain Surge, 7 mana left, just enough for the Nexus of Fate, which means that if I don't get it off this Brain Surge, I miss. And Brain Surge is the only, and I hit it at the 4th card that I draw. Brain Surge is one of those very few cards that can be 3 mana, lets you get 2 cards and look at 4 cards. The important part is it lets you look at 4 cards, which is super important for the ability to get to your Nexus of Fates in the deck. Additionally, if you don't like the cards you put back, you can use the Tomio to mill and put those cards in your graveyard. Or if you want them in your graveyard, like, I don't know, an Uro that you want to escape, you can use the Tamio to do that as well. It provides a lot of utility in many situations. Next, we have Devious Cover Up. It's not really that important. It's just a 3 of counter spell that I use because it exiles the spell, so the spells can't be recurred, and it lets you shuffle cards from your graveyard into your library. If, let's say, your opponent removes your Tamios, you need a way to still get back your win condition from your graveyard, the ones that I will go over when I go over my land section. So this lets you do that while being able to counter spells as well. Next, we have the 1 copy of Dig Through Time. Similar thing to Treasure Cruise. If you're putting cards in the graveyard and you're a blue deck, you're playing Dig Through Time. It's just that good of a card. That's why it's restricted. And I'm only running 1 copy. If I could, I'd be running like 3 of them. Okay, so now we're about halfway through the video-ish. I'm gonna ask you to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. It really helps out. I want to do more Magic content in the future. I want to do more deck breakdowns in the future. So it would be really nice of you if you could hit that subscribe button. All right. Next, we got Growth Spiral. This is one of our 8 copies of Instant Speed 2-mana ramp. So, draw a card, put a land on the battlefield. The classic, simple, good in this deck, lets you get to that mana you need. You need 7 mana in this deck, so having these mana accelerants is really important to the deck's game plan, especially with this one, because this one allows you to play a Growth Spiral on your end step, put your 3rd land into play, go to your untap, play a land, play a Wilderness Reclamation on turn 3. It's very important for that turn 3 Wilderness Reclamation that can really help you get your game plan going. Additionally, it can be, like I said, like a Brain Surge, not as good because it only lets you see 1 card, but get you that card 1 card deeper you need into your deck to win the game with your Nexus of Fates. Lose Focus. Next, we have Lose Focus, staple counterspell in this format. Very good. Of course, Replicate is good in all decks because it lets you grade that too, but is especially good in this deck because we're a deck that has a lot of mana and always has that mana untapped for our opponent's turn with our Wilderness Reclamation. So having this Lose Focus can be very good and can win you games in a lot of situations. Overall, very good, very solid card. Would not cut. Would always run at least 3 copies of this. Devious Cover Up, I would see you trimming a copy, add another Lose Focus maybe, but I really like it. And Growth Spiral, obviously, you want all 4 so you can get that ramp. Next, we have Memory Deluge. This is my favorite card in the deck. It is so good in this deck. Not only can it be recurred from the graveyard, but it lets you look at 4 cards and then 7 cards. The amount of cards you get to look at and the card selection you get from this card is so good. It is one of the best cards in the deck. Would not recommend running any less than 4 copies of this incredibly good piece. Also, it's instant speed, so you can cast at your opponent's end step the turn before you're about to go off to try and get that little extra card advantage you might need to get the win. And next we have, of course, the namesake of the deck, Nexus of Fate. Nexus of Fate is, of course, the card the deck is built around, and you might be like, why are you only running 3 copies if it's the card the deck's built around? Well, I've done a lot of testing. I found Nexus of Fate, Nexus Reclamation, this deck works best with 3 copies of Nexus of Fate, because Nexus of Fate is a expensive 7 mana card. So, if you want to play this card, you're going to need to run not 4 just to make sure that you don't get hands that brick because you have too many Nexus of Fates. Having 3 Nexus of Fates is the optimal amount. It keeps you from getting brick, but it still keeps it consistent enough that you can, get your Nexus of Fates and win the game with the card the deck's named after. It's called Nexus Reclamation. You need the Nexus of Fate. Overall, I'd say 3 copies is the best from Nexus of Fate, but I could understand going for 4 if you're worried about consistency. But it might lead to a few different consistency issues. So, you really got to pick your poison there. Next, we have the most important instant in this deck, Planar Genesis. This is like Growth Spiral on crack. It is so much better. While it doesn't give you that card replacement that you get with Growth Spiral, the ability to look at the top 4 and, grab a land in the early game to ramp or use it as card selection to get to your Nexus of Fates or your better card advantage spells like your Memory Deluges or your Dig Through Times makes it invaluable to the deck's game plan. An easy 4 of in this deck. Now I'm going to get to my favorite part of the deck. Absolute favorite. The mana base. So mana base is simple. We got couple forests, couple islands, Hinterland Harbor for fixing. That's not the important part. The important part is cards like this. Castle Vantress. Super good with Wilderness Reclamation. Allows you to scry 2 if you have one turn and you need to find something, to hit that scry 2 on your opponent's end step. After that, untap with your Wilderness Reclamation, get that little extra card selection you might need. Hall of the Storm Giants, the best land in this deck. That Ward 3 can come in clutch. I've gotten a lot of people with it. Actually, last tournament I played in, a guy tried to kill my Hall of the Storm Giants with the Swords of Plowshares, and he only had 2 mana open after because he forgot it had Ward 3. This card is really good. A lot of people forget it has Ward and try to target it with removal. Makes it a very powerful card. Very good to use, and it can enter untapped in the early game too if you need to play it out early to get that mana down. Very good card, and it can lead to a lot of really cool games and a lot of interesting wins. For instance, one time I knew this guy probably had removal, so I power up my Hall of Storm Giants in his upkeep. He gets confused. He's like, "Why are you pounding up in the upkeep?" And then he forgets to activate the removal because you could activate removal in response to the activation at instant speed. He forgets to do that, and then later in the game when I go to block with it, he tries to cast his Vindicate on it. Only has 2 extra mana to pay for the Ward 3. Forgets it has Ward 3 again, by the way. It's the same guy that tried to remove it earlier. Forgets it has Ward 3 again, and loses another removal set to it. And I won that game without Nexus of Fate looping. I just beat him up with Hall of the Storm Giants. So that is another win. If you're in a game that's like scrappy, not too many pieces on board, everyone's vying for card advantage, one of these Hall of the Storm Giants or other manland, which I'll get to in a minute, can be really vital to winning a game. And next we have Lair of the Hydra, the other manland in the deck. A little worse at winning games the way Hall of the Storm Giant does, but really good in that Nexus of Fate plan, the main plan, because you can dump your whole mana into it on your turn, beat up an opponent for 10, cast Nexus of Fate, and maybe only need one more turn to take them out. Overall, really powerful, really solid land. Recommend the copies I'm running: 1 Hall of the Storm Giants, 1 Lair of the Hydra, because even if you accidentally mill them, they're not too good in multiple copies because they enter tapped at a certain point. That can make them be a pretty big disadvantage. And we have ways to recur them. Like I said, Tomio, you can hit that -3 to recur a Lair of the Hydra or a Hall of Storm Giants. Like I mentioned earlier, Wilderness Reclamation allows you to hold these up as blockers as well, making them really solid not only in the main game plan as a finisher that doesn't really cost too much because it's just an untap. It's basically just replacing a forest or island in your deck, but it can also be a blocker that can win you games because of that. One game I blocked a lethal attack with a Pyrogoyf with my Lair of the Hydra, and the next turn I was able to go off and win because I was able to block that Pyrogoyf with my Lair of the Hydra. Overall, these cards are huge for this deck and can lead to massive momentum swings, even though they're just lands, which is why they're so good. Oh yeah, we got 2 Temple and Mysteries, let's just scry one, hit him off the Planar Genesis, which makes it enter tapped anyways. Just a little extra card selection when you need it. Not too great, but recommend running 1 or 2 of those for the dual land and the extra little consistency it can give you. And next we have the sideboard. This sideboard I'm really proud of. First, we got 3 Weather the Storms. This is for your aggro decks, your more burn type aggro decks are going to hit you with a lot of damage and not really try to go for you on the ground as much. Even still good against those decks. Decks that cast a lot of spells. Storm decks, if you're someone trying to hit you with a Grape Shot or a Tendrils of Agony, they can do that. They can go off, and then you can hit that Weather the Storm, and they're like, oh, and then even with the Tendrils, they can't kill you because your Storm count's going to be the same as theirs, so you're going to gain 1 more life than the Tendrils or 2 more than the Grape Shot would deal to you. Great against Storm style decks, great against aggro burn decks, really good. Test of Towns. This deck's great against other combo decks and control decks. This can let you take out, for instance, if you're playing High Tide, you can use this to hit their High Tides, or if you're playing a deck like the one guy that went 2-0-1, he's playing like a Wheels deck. If you can hit his main wheel or his or some other card like that is really good. It's not too good against, decks that try to combo with creatures and such, because it only hits instant sorceries, but really good against those instant sorcery style combo decks that can pop up time to time in the format, and this deck tends to struggle against, because this deck can be a little faster than those creature-based combos sometimes. Sometimes they're a little slower and can be a little more disruptive with your Lose Focus and your Devious cover-up. Next, we have Ravtrap. This is the graveyard-hated choice in this deck. Important that it causes 0 to cast, because it doesn't use up that mana, especially when this is great when your opponent thinks they're safe because they're tapped out, and this deck doesn't have any other free spells, so this can really get a graveyard player, especially good against dredge decks because they like to put their whole graveyard in a turn. Good against Hogak too. Overall, really solid card. Next, we have Fog. This for your creature matchup. If you're playing against a Death and Taxes style deck, low to the ground, beat you up with creatures deck. This is a really useful card. Really good to just slow that deck down by the extra turn or two you need to win. Overall, amazing card. Love it in the sideboards. Won me a couple games before. And lastly, we have 2 copies of Beast Within. This is just like a catch-all, You're playing against a deck that's this tough, maybe like permanent that's really messing with your game plan. This Beast Within can just deal with it. It's kind of like the test of talents of this test of talents, but for permanents, because this only hits instant or sorceries. This can really get rid of those problematic permanents like Hole Breacher or I don't know, other like a Cloud Post. It can hit permanent lands too. So if you're playing against like Cloud Post or some like weird Dark Depths deck, you can just handle it easily. I don't know if people still play Dark Depths in this form. I don't know if it's like went up in price too much or whatever. But overall, this can just hit those problematic permanents. Great tool in the sideboard. Recommend playing. Overall, I'd recommend, changing the sideboard to fit what matchups you see more often. But I find that this sideboard is pretty consistent against most decks that you need sideboard against. And most of the decks that these sideboard cards don't hit, you can pretty effectively deal with in your main deck. That is all for today. I want to say thank you for watching this video, and make sure to like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch, which I have right there in the bottom. Thank you all so much for watching. This is Swimmer out.